They said I was insane when I threatened to demolish their $1 million clubhouse. You're nobody. The HOA president sneered, standing beside her white Range Rover in front of her $2.1 million Mediterranean villa. We control everything here: the lawyers, the money, the power. 4 months later, I'm watching her precious clubhouse reduced to rubble while construction crews haul away marble fountains like broken dreams. The sound of my work boots on cracked pavement echoes where her garden parties once hummed with champagne toasts and false laughter. She thought she could bulldoze a former city infrastructure director. Thought she could tear down the community garden my grandmother planted in 1962, the same soil where 4 generations learned to grow tomatoes and life lessons, including my own daughter, before leukemia took her at age 12. What this corporate lawyer from Boston never bothered to investigate was simple. I didn't just own a townhouse in her precious development. I owned the utility easement running directly beneath her clubhouse foundation. What would you do if your HOA destroyed the last living memory of your child? Drop a comment and let me know where you're from. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 48 years old with ink-stained fingers that understand the difference between building communities and destroying them. After 15 years managing Boston's Department of Public Works, then another decade in private civil engineering, I thought retirement in sunny Phoenix would bring peace. When my grandmother passed in March 2023, she left me her legacy: a modest 1,960 seconds townhouse in Desert Ridge Commons with something priceless, a quarter-acre community garden she'd cultivated since Kennedy was president. Every sunset, I kneel in that soil where weathered wooden planks mark where my daughter Emma helped plant sunflowers during her final summer. The garden witnessed my parents' first date in 1969, later my own fumbling proposal to Rachel in 1996, autumn desert winds carrying our promises across rows of heirloom tomatoes. After Emma's 4-year battle ended in January 2024, that garden became my sanctuary, the only place where I could still hear her laughter in the rustle of corn stalks. Desert Ridge Commons tells Phoenix's gentrification story in microcosm. A 500-unit development of working-class townhomes built in the 1,960 seconds, now invaded by luxury renovations after tech money discovered our authentic urban village character. The original residents understood community Miguel Rodriguez, a Korean War veteran whose Bronze Star hangs beside his fishing photos, fixes everyone's plumbing for free. Dorothy Kim shares produce from her rooftop garden and makes kimchi that tastes like childhood summers in Seoul. We barbecue together, share tools, and respect boundaries while cactus wrens sing and creosote perfumes our desert evenings. Then, August 2023 brought the Prestige Properties acquisition, and with it came Vanessa Sterling White, like a hurricane wrapped in Armani. 42, fresh from a bitter divorce that left her with millions but no purpose, armed with a Harvard law degree and entitlement that could choke an elephant. Her $2.3 million renovation contained more imported Italian marble than the Getty Museum, strategically positioned to dominate our modest street like a corporate fortress surveying conquered territory. Vanessa studied our community through Prada sunglasses, the way a developer studies property before demolition, calculating what needed erasing. Our first collision happened at Kim's Corner Market, where she stood complaining about aesthetic inconsistencies compromising investment value to poor Jenny behind the register. Her white Range Rover Sport sat outside like a spaceship that crash-landed in 1965, while she gestured with diamond-heavy fingers about property standards and community vision. When she turned and spotted my Patagonia jacket and steel-toed Timberlands, her smile turned plastic enough to recycle. "You must be one of our charming legacy residents," she purred, pronouncing legacy like a disease diagnosis. 8 months later, Vanessa's Community Enhancement Initiative launched with corporate precision. Her target list identified Miguel's vintage Chevy truck as automotive blight, Dorothy's rooftop garden as structural modification requiring immediate removal, and my grandmother's garden as Unauthorized agricultural use, presenting liability concerns and diminishing collective property values. The certified violation notice arrived like a court summons, official letterhead screaming authority nobody had granted her. I marched to her marble palace carrying my grandmother's original 1962 deed and city planning permits. "Mr. Chen," she said, opening her 12-foot door with theatrical patience, "that quaint little garden simply doesn't align with our reimagined community vision. We're cultivating an upscale residential experience, not operating a farmer's market." The scent of Joe Malone candles and legal intimidation filled her foyer as I spread historical documents across her Carrera marble island. This garden predated her HOA by 61 years. I explained legally grandfathered, historically documented, and absolutely none of her concern. Vanessa's response was a smile sharp enough to draw blood. "How adorably naive. The membership has voted, Mr. Chen, and democracy is beautiful when it serves progress." Her manicured nails drummed against marble like a countdown timer. 45 days to comply, or we'll pursue more aggressive remediation strategies. Standing there in her temple to excess, I realized this woman had just declared war on the wrong engineer. Vanessa transformed her threat into action with shocking speed. 5 days after our marble confrontation, she convened an emergency HOA board meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Wednesday when working residents couldn't attend. The venue, her own living room naturally, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the community pool like a corporate boardroom designed for intimidation. When I arrived, the smell of artisan coffee and French pastries couldn't disguise the stench of rigged proceedings. She'd packed the room with her allies from the recent luxury renovations, 8 families who'd moved in during the past 18 months, all driving vehicles worth more than my annual pension. The original residents were outnumbered, just me, Miguel, and Dorothy facing down Vanessa's hand-picked tribunal. On her glass coffee table sat a binder thick enough to stop bullets, labeled Agricultural Land Use Violation Safety Assessment in aggressive red letters. "Thank you all for accommodating this urgent scheduling," Vanessa began, her voice dripping manufactured concern. "We're addressing a serious liability exposure requiring immediate intervention." She opened the binder like a prosecutor, presenting murder evidence. "This professional environmental assessment confirms our worst concerns about Mr. Chen's unauthorized agricultural operation. The liability exposure to our community is simply unacceptable." I leaned forward to examine her so-called professional assessment. The letterhead read, "Sterling Environmental Consulting, her brother's firm from Massachusetts." The evaluation was 6 pages of technical-sounding nonsense about soil contamination risks and pest attraction hazards, complete with poorly lit photographs making my grandmother's thriving garden look like a toxic waste site. 15 years reviewing municipal infrastructure reports had taught me to recognize bureaucratic manipulation dressed in official language, and this stank worse than a sewage treatment failure. "This assessment is fabricated," I said, my municipal management directness cutting through her corporate theater. "Your brother has never inspected my property, and this garden has sustained 4 generations without incident. It'll outlast half these McMansions in this development." Vanessa's smile turned predatory. "Mr. Chen, personal accusations won't alter the facts. Community safety must take priority." She gestured to her audience like a game show host revealing prizes. "All in favor of requiring immediate garden removal to protect our collective property values and resident safety?" 9 hands shot up faster than a rocket launch. The vote was devastating. 9-3 for immediate demolition with a 60-day compliance deadline and $750 daily fines until I surrendered. Dorothy whispered, "I'm so sorry, honey," as the gavel fell on 61 years of community history. But here's where Vanessa made her first catastrophic mistake. She underestimated a municipal infrastructure director's research capabilities. While she celebrated her victory with expensive wine and self-congratulation, I spent the next 10 days camping at Phoenix City Hall, excavating filing cabinets older than statehood. The musty smell of deteriorating paper and forgotten bureaucracy filled my lungs as I searched for ammunition. My father had always taught me that municipal disputes were won in dusty archive rooms, not fancy boardrooms, and I remembered his guidance about checking every utility map 3 times before accepting defeat. The breakthrough came buried in a 1959 Phoenix Department of Water Resources survey map, yellowed with age but crystal clear in its implications. My grandmother's garden sat directly above a major utility easement public right-of-way for underground water and electrical infrastructure serving the entire development. I'd learned during my DPW career that utility easements were like constitutional amendments. Once established, they trumped everything built afterward. The HOA had precisely 0 jurisdiction over municipal utility corridors, regardless of what their lawyers claimed. Even better, I discovered that Vanessa's precious clubhouse sat on the exact same easement route. The 2021 renovation permits showed she'd built her marble palace directly over critical utility infrastructure, technically requiring city approval she'd never obtained. Her illegal construction violated multiple municipal codes, creating liability exposure that would make her insurance company scream. Armed with this municipal dynamite, I returned to Vanessa's next board meeting carrying a briefcase that felt heavier than my old construction equipment. This time, I'd invited City Planning Director Patricia Morales, a no-nonsense administrator who'd been enforcing municipal codes since before Vanessa learned to spell Massachusetts. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, standing in Vanessa's pristine living room like David facing Goliath, "I have fascinating information about municipal jurisdiction and infrastructure authority." The silence in that room was thick enough to taste the defeat brewing. Patricia spread the city utility maps across Vanessa's coffee table, her official seal gleaming under designer lighting. "The garden in question occupies municipal utility easement property," she explained with bureaucratic precision. "The HOA's demolition order exceeds their legal authority and is therefore void. Furthermore, the clubhouse structure appears to violate multiple construction codes regarding utility corridor encroachment." Vanessa's face cycled through more colors than a phoenix sunset. "That's impossible. We conducted proper due diligence. We followed all procedures. Your due diligence was incomplete," Patricia replied, her tone carrying municipal authority. "Utility easements supersede all private covenants and HOA regulations. The garden stays. Your clubhouse, however, requires immediate compliance review." The room's temperature seemed to plummet 20 degrees as Vanessa's carefully constructed victory crumbled like cheap drywall. Her fingers drummed against marble with increasing intensity, the sound like bullets tapping against armor. "You may have won this round, Mr. Chen," she said through gritted teeth, "but there are numerous other avenues for encouraging community cooperation." Standing there watching her squirm, I realized I'd just kicked a hornet's nest. And hornets always swarm back angrier. Vanessa's promise of numerous other avenues materialized faster than summer monsoons in the Sonoran Desert. Within 10 days, she'd pivoted from frontal assault to guerrilla harassment, launching what military strategists would recognize as asymmetric warfare through bureaucratic attrition. My morning gardening routine, 6 a.m. watering to beat the heat, suddenly became a water waste violation during drought restrictions. My composting system, operating exactly where my grandmother had maintained it for 6 decades, was now an organic waste management concern presenting odor and pest attraction risks. The harassment campaign deployed with corporate efficiency that would have impressed my old municipal administrators. Vanessa had retained a professional HOA enforcement firm headed by a weaselly compliance officer named Trevor Nash, who appeared every Thursday with his tablet and digital measuring tools like some kind of suburban Gestapo. The sound of his stylus tapping as he documented imaginary infractions became the soundtrack to my summer mornings. Trevor cited me for fence height, apparently 6 feet 2 inches exceeded the 6-foot maximum by a criminal margin. My garden shed's sun-faded blue paint needed immediate refreshment to meet exterior maintenance standards. Even my heirloom tomato stakes were deemed visually inconsistent with approved landscape architecture guidelines that nobody had ever mentioned before. Each violation carried a $300 fine plus $75 daily escalation fees that would make a payday lender blush. But Vanessa's most insidious weapon was her whisper campaign. At Kim's Corner Market, the community center, even the damn dry cleaner, she'd appear like a well-dressed vulture, spreading poison about my hostile refusal to embrace community improvement initiatives and how I was single-handedly destroying everyone's property values with my agricultural obsession. I'd catch fragments of conversations that stopped when I entered. Bitter widower can't let go of the past, making life miserable for everyone trying to build something better. The social isolation cut deeper than enemy criticism ever had during contentious city council meetings. Neighbors who'd waved for 20 years suddenly found their phones fascinating when I walked past. Even Jenny at the corner market started avoiding eye contact, though she'd slip me an extra pack of coffee with a sympathetic nod when Vanessa wasn't watching. That's when I understood I wasn't fighting this battle alone. Miguel found me in the garden one evening, nursing a beer while watching the sunset paint the desert sky orange and purple. "This reminds me of Korea," he said, settling his weathered frame onto my grandmother's bench. Officers in clean uniforms making life hell for people doing honest work. Turns out Vanessa had been systematically targeting every original resident in the development. Dorothy got cited for her unauthorized rooftop agricultural operation, the container garden that had provided fresh vegetables to homebound neighbors for 3 decades. Tom Murphy, our local handyman, faced violations for storing his work van in his own driveway. Miguel's beloved 1967 Chevy truck was deemed automotive blight, requiring immediate cosmetic restoration or removal. During my municipal career, I'd witnessed selective enforcement used as a power tactic by corrupt officials target specific individuals to create fear and compliance in the broader population. Vanessa was executing the same playbook, and I remembered reading case law where selective enforcement actually invalidated HOA authority if you could prove discriminatory patterns. The surveillance discovery came by accident. I'd been noticing the same silver Nissan Altima parked near my property at varying times, morning, afternoon, evening, always, with someone sitting inside. When I finally confronted the driver, cigarette smoke and energy drink fumes wafted through his cracked window as he fumbled for identification. Private investigator retained by Desert Ridge Commons HOA for community compliance documentation and property value impact assessment research. "What exactly are you documenting?" I asked, keeping my voice municipal calm despite wanting to drag him out through the window. "Just recording activities that might affect community standards," he mumbled, clearly uncomfortable with direct confrontation. "Nothing personal, strictly professional documentation." But it was about to get extremely personal. That night, I installed enhanced security cameras around my property, focusing on the garden and utility easement area. Call it municipal paranoia, but something in Vanessa's desperate energy suggested she was preparing for escalation beyond legal harassment. I was right. 4 days later, my garden irrigation system mysteriously developed structural damage overnight PVC pipes, showing clean saw cuts that even an amateur could identify as sabotage. The security camera captured a figure in white clothing near the garden at 3 a.m., moving with the purposeful stride of someone who thought darkness provided invisibility. Miguel, with 30 years of military police experience reading body language and criminal behavior, reviewed the footage with me over coffee that tasted like justice brewing. 30 years watching suspects and that woman's guilty as sin? He confirmed, pointing at the distinctive gait and posture. Same height, same build, same entitled way of moving like she owns the universe. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for her to walk into it. Vanessa's desperation reached critical mass when she decided to weaponize my personal tragedy against me. 3 weeks after the irrigation sabotage, she filed a formal complaint with Maricopa County about my increasingly erratic and emotionally unstable behavior, complete with cherry-picked testimonies from her Prestige Properties allies about my obsessive fixation on deceased family members and hostile confrontational pattern. The woman had somehow obtained my daughter's medical records, probably through her ex-husband's pharmaceutical industry connections, and discovered my grief counseling sessions following Emma's death. The psychological evaluation ambush arrived on a scorching Tuesday morning while I was performing routine garden maintenance. Sheriff's Deputy Carlos Mendoza pulled into my driveway with Vanessa trailing behind in her white Range Rover like a vulture following a hearse. The deputy's radio crackled with morning dispatch chatter as Vanessa launched into her performance, complete with concerned neighbor act and trembling voice worthy of a Lifetime movie. Deputy Mendoza, we're genuinely concerned about Mr. Chen's well-being, she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue that appeared magically from her Hermes purse. He's been making increasingly paranoid accusations about his neighbors, seems completely detached from reality. We're worried he might harm himself or others in his deteriorating mental state. 15 years of municipal management discipline kicked in automatically. I set down my tools, cleaned my hands, and approached with the calm professionalism that had served me through countless contentious city council meetings. Good morning, Deputy. I assume you're here about Miss Sterling White's ongoing harassment campaign. I produced my organized documentation binder, every violation notice, every harassing incident, every piece of sabotage evidence, all cross-referenced and chronologically arranged like a municipal infrastructure report. The security footage of the irrigation sabotage played on my tablet while Deputy Mendoza reviewed the evidence with growing interest. Ma'am, he said, turning to Vanessa with the look law enforcement reserves for time wasters, filing false reports is a misdemeanor in Maricopa County. Mr. Chen appears to have legitimate grievances, and his documentation is thorough and credible. I strongly suggest you reconsider your approach to neighborhood disputes. Vanessa's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the calculating predator underneath before she recovered with wounded dignity. I'm simply trying to protect our community, Deputy, but I understand you must investigate all reports thoroughly. As soon as the patrol car disappeared down the street, Vanessa escalated to her nuclear option, property liens. The certified letter arrived 5 days later, thick as a phone book and reeking of legal intimidation. $27,000 in accumulated violation fines, she claimed, with interest and administrative fees compounding daily. Failure to pay within 90 days would trigger foreclosure proceedings against my grandmother's townhouse. But while Vanessa was playing her legal games, I'd been conducting research that would have made my old municipal infrastructure team proud. 2 weeks of deep diving through city records, utility department archives, and municipal engineering documents had revealed something she never saw coming. The story of Desert Ridge Commons infrastructure was far more complex than anyone realized, and buried in those dusty municipal files was the key to ending this war permanently. Desert Ridge Commons wasn't built on virgin land. It was constructed over a critical underground utility corridor serving Phoenix's entire northeast sector, a comprehensive network of water mains, electrical conduits, and telecommunications infrastructure installed by the city in 1957. When private developers built the townhouse community in 1962, they'd signed perpetual easement agreements granting the city unlimited access rights for infrastructure maintenance and expansion. The easement agreement felt like parchment between my fingers as I studied the implications, brittle with age, but solid as reinforced concrete in its legal authority. From my municipal engineering background, I knew that utility easements operated under different property law principles than private developments. Property owners purchased their homes with assumptions about privacy and control, but no legal guarantees against municipal infrastructure needs. As someone with documented historical precedent for easement use, I controlled access to infrastructure affecting the entire development, and municipal regulations actually protected my right to conduct necessary utility maintenance affecting structures built over protected corridors. My municipal attorney, David Brennan, confirmed what I'd suspected during our consultation in his downtown office that smelled like law books and decades of municipal victories. Mr. Chen, you have what we call historical easement priority. Your family's documented use predates all subsequent construction. combined with the municipal utility corridor status, you have authority to request infrastructure modifications affecting any structures built over protected easements. It's that straightforward. The municipal infrastructure angle provided perfect cover. City records showed the water main beneath Vanessa's clubhouse was due for mandatory replacement under Phoenix's Aging Infrastructure Improvement Program, something scheduled for 2025 but never initiated due to budget constraints. I could petition the city to accelerate that replacement, requiring temporary demolition of any structures impeding access to critical utility corridors. But here's where it got truly interesting. Vanessa's entire financial empire was leveraged against that clubhouse remaining operational. Her $1.8 million renovation project was funded through high-interest development loans with covenants requiring premier community amenity facility status. Without the clubhouse, property values would plummet 40–50%, triggering loan defaults that would collapse her entire investment portfolio. I didn't just hold the trump card, I held the demolition permit. The complete picture of my demolition option crystallized during a late-night research session in my grandmother's townhouse, surrounded by municipal engineering manuals and city planning documents that painted a devastating scenario for Vanessa's empire. I didn't just have historical easement priority, I had exclusive rights to petition for infrastructure modifications affecting structures built over protected utility corridors, backed by 60 years of municipal precedent and city ordinances that made my authority absolutely bulletproof. The 1,990 seconds water main replacement cases I discovered established ironclad precedent. Residents with documented historical easement usage could petition the city for infrastructure improvements affecting any subsequent construction over protected corridors. When utility systems faced aging infrastructure concerns, the municipal engineering department could authorize temporary demolition of obstructing structures for essential maintenance and modernization. The courts had consistently ruled that community convenience and private investment took second place to public infrastructure integrity and water system reliability. But the municipal compliance angle was pure gold. Phoenix Department of Water Resources records confirmed that the water main beneath Vanessa's clubhouse was classified as critical infrastructure requiring modernization priority, comprehensive upgrades mandated every 30 years. The last major work happened in 1994, making current maintenance 11 years overdue. I could file the required petition, request accelerated infrastructure replacement, and every municipal engineer in Arizona would defend my actions as responsible advocacy for community infrastructure needs. The financial intelligence I'd gathered on Vanessa revealed her vulnerability was even greater than I'd imagined. Her clubhouse renovation wasn't just an expensive hobby, it was a leveraged bet the farm investment funded through multiple high-interest construction loans. The loan covenants I'd researched through public financing records required maintaining premier residential amenity destination status throughout the development period. Without the clubhouse operational, her property would become a vacant lot worth maybe 20 cents on the dollar. Even more devastating, Vanessa had borrowed against multiple properties to fund this venture, creating a financial house of cards that would collapse if any single element failed. Her Back Bay condo, her Cape Cod investment properties, even her precious Range Rover were collateral against loans that would become immediately callable if the clubhouse project failed. Her entire financial identity was tied to that marble palace remaining standing and operational. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Labor Day weekend was 8 weeks away, exactly when Vanessa had scheduled her clubhouse grand reopening gala following the renovation completion. She'd already pre-sold premium membership packages worth $600,000 for the fall season, with local lifestyle magazines running promotional features about the luxury community amenity redefining upscale Phoenix living. The media attention meant her failure would be spectacularly public. My consultation with David Brennan confirmed every legal avenue was secured. The municipal infrastructure petition requires 45 days public notice. he explained, spreading the forms across his conference table like battle plans. File these documents and you'll have unstoppable bureaucratic momentum. No court in Arizona would grant an injunction against required municipal infrastructure modernization. The engineering solution was elegantly surgical. The water main replacement project would require temporary demolition of any structure within 15 feet of the utility corridor centerline. I could target the clubhouse foundation specifically while leaving other development structures completely untouched, precision strikes destroying her investment while protecting my neighbors. The moral calculation had kept me awake for 5 nights running. Demolishing the clubhouse would affect the entire community, not just Vanessa. But as I studied the municipal infrastructure specifications and water quality data, I realized this wasn't just revenge, it was genuinely beneficial public works. Replacing the aging water main would improve water pressure, reduce contamination risks that had caused recent boil water advisories, and allow upgrades that would benefit the development's long-term infrastructure reliability. Vanessa had spent months trying to destroy something precious to me. Now I held the power to destroy something precious to her, with the added benefit of community infrastructure improvement and legal protection. The irony was perfect. She'd attacked my family legacy using legal technicalities, and I was about to end her financial empire using municipal regulations she'd never bothered to research. Sitting in my grandmother's townhouse, surrounded by the evidence of my upcoming victory, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Emma's death. The satisfaction of a plan coming together perfectly. Vanessa had wanted to play hardball with a former municipal infrastructure director. Now, she was about to learn why that was the worst mistake of her privileged life. The paperwork was ready. The legal foundation was solid. The municipal justification was bulletproof. Time to demolish her dreams. War requires good soldiers, and I was about to assemble the finest team of community advocates Phoenix had ever seen. My first recruit was Miguel Rodriguez, whose 30 years of military police experience and natural suspicion of authority made him perfect for operational security and evidence documentation. Dorothy Kim brought decades of community organizing experience that translated into resident relations and public messaging. Nobody could frame a narrative like a retired teacher who dealt with hostile school boards. Tom Murphy, our contractor, provided technical expertise on demolition logistics, having worked on similar municipal projects throughout the metro area. But my secret weapon was Jessica Torres, the Phoenix Water Resources engineer who owed me a favor from our shared work on the 2019 infrastructure crisis. Jessica could provide official municipal cover and ensure all bureaucratic requirements were met with engineering precision. The technical planning session took place in my townhouse on a monsoon-soaked Thursday evening, with city engineering manuals and utility corridor maps spread across my dining table like battle plans. The concrete and steel infrastructure my grandmother's generation had helped build in the 1,950 seconds was still functionally sound after 70 years, a testament to post-war craftsmanship that modern developers couldn't match. The municipal petition process would allow me to request accelerated water main replacement specifically beneath the clubhouse footprint, targeting Vanessa's structure while maintaining service for other residents. The beauty of this system, I explained to my team while tracing the utility diagrams, is surgical precision. We can authorize demolition of the specific structure, impeding infrastructure access while keeping everything else operational. David Brennan, my municipal attorney, had crafted a legal strategy that was absolutely bulletproof. Infrastructure improvement petitions would be filed with city and county agencies, creating unstoppable bureaucratic momentum. Once those official documents entered the municipal machinery, no private party could halt the process without proving public safety harm, which was impossible since our action would actually improve the community's water infrastructure reliability. The municipal regulations David had researched became our greatest weapon. Infrastructure, compliance, paperwork created legal immunity for actions that might otherwise seem controversial. Every form, every notification, every required study would be filed in perfect bureaucratic order, making our demolition operation not just legal, but officially mandated by Phoenix municipal ordinances. Dorothy's public relations campaign positioned our petition as responsible infrastructure advocacy rather than personal revenge. Her messaging focused on aging water systems, recent boil water advisories, and the necessity of modernizing critical utilities before catastrophic failures occurred. The community angle presented our action as protecting property values through proactive infrastructure investment rather than attacking individual residents. "We're not targeting anyone," Dorothy explained during our strategy session, her teacher's instincts for narrative control shining through. "We're advocating for our community's infrastructure needs before emergency failures force reactive, expensive repairs." Her coffee and conversation meetings with sympathetic neighbors created grassroots support for what others might see as destructive action. Miguel's intelligence gathering operations revealed that Vanessa's clubhouse renovation was already behind schedule and over budget, with investors getting increasingly nervous about the project's viability. Financial pressure was making her take desperate measures to secure additional funding, including leveraging properties she couldn't afford to lose. The surveillance rotation Miguel established confirmed she was spending sleepless nights dealing with contractor disputes and cost overruns. Jessica Torres' official water infrastructure assessment provided perfect bureaucratic cover for our operation. Her Phoenix Water Resources mandate identified essential maintenance requirements justifying temporary structural removal within 45 days, creating legal urgency that Vanessa couldn't challenge. The beauty of municipal regulations was their immunity to private party objections. Once infrastructure compliance was required, personal convenience became irrelevant. Our psychological warfare phase began with strategic information leaks. Jessica filed official municipal paperwork that created public record trails, letting rumors of possible infrastructure work circulate naturally through the community. Legal documents with official city seals arriving at municipal offices created intimidation factor that money couldn't buy, building pressure on Vanessa without revealing our ultimate intentions. The contingency planning covered every possible challenge, multiple municipal justifications prepared in case of legal obstacles, sympathetic local journalists briefed for positive coverage, and financial protections, ensuring my own property value impacts would be minimized. Most importantly, we planned for complete infrastructure restoration after the maintenance period, demonstrating good faith municipal stewardship. Labor Day weekend timing was perfect for maximum psychological impact on Vanessa's grand reopening. The final preparations included studying demolition procedures, testing equipment functionality, and installing structural monitoring systems to document everything. Every action would be photographed and legally justified, creating an unassailable record of responsible municipal infrastructure advocacy. Coffee and whispered strategies filled Dorothy's kitchen with warmth and determination as we finalized our plans. After months of harassment and legal intimidation, we were finally ready to show Vanessa that some battles are won with municipal knowledge rather than expensive lawyers. Vanessa's intelligence network was better than I'd given her credit for. Somehow, she'd caught wind of my city hall visits and infrastructure paperwork filings, though she completely misread their significance. Assuming I was researching property law to defend against her lien threats, she decided to eliminate my leverage before I could deploy it. Hire Dennis Krause and his crew for emergency utility corridor maintenance that would conveniently disable my easement access rights. The sabotage attempt unfolded like a bad crime drama. At 3:15 a.m. on a moonless Tuesday, Dennis's crew arrived at the easement access point with cutting torches and hydraulic tools, planning to damage the utility corridor markings beyond immediate recognition. What they didn't count on was Miguel's military-grade surveillance operation, complete with night vision cameras and motion sensors that would make Homeland Security jealous. Miguel's voice crackled through my radio at 3:30 a.m. Hostiles at the easement point. 3 subjects with power tools attempting to obscure utility corridor markers. The night vision footage was crystal clear. Dennis and 2 accomplices cutting through protective fencing, carrying equipment specifically designed to obliterate municipal infrastructure markers. Metal tools scraped against concrete as they worked, their headlamps bobbing like fireflies in panic when Miguel and I emerged from the shadows with our own lights blazing. "Just doing contracted maintenance work, buddy," Dennis stammered when we caught him red-handed with a cutting torch inches from the utility corridor marker. Cigarette smoke and nervous sweat made the desert air thick with guilt as he fumbled for explanations that wouldn't hold water in a leaking bucket. "Your contracted maintenance doesn't include vandalizing municipal infrastructure markers," I replied, keeping my voice municipal calm while Miguel documented everything with his camera. "That's called criminal destruction of public property, and it carries felony charges when you mess with utility systems." The confession came faster than I expected. Dennis, faced with potential felony charges and a Bronze Star recipient as witness, cracked like cheap concrete. Vanessa had offered him a $15,000 bonus for preventing any utility complications that might interfere with clubhouse operations. She'd even provided detailed diagrams of which markers to be obscure, proving premeditation and conspiracy. By morning, I had criminal charges filed for property damage, conspiracy, and attempted destruction of municipal infrastructure. The evidence package included video footage, witness statements, financial records of Vanessa's payments to Dennis, and documented proof of deliberate sabotage planning. Phoenix Police Department took the case seriously. Infrastructure attacks carried serious implications, especially when they involved water system components, but Vanessa wasn't finished. Faced with criminal exposure and sensing her empire crumbling, she launched a preemptive social media campaign to frame herself as the victim of my unstable neighbor vendetta. Instagram posts flooded local community groups with sympathy-seeking narratives about harassment and persecution. She even organized an emergency community town hall at a local country club, complete with catered refreshments and professional PowerPoint presentations. The community split, deepened into open warfare. Property lines became battle lines, with townhouse residents forced to choose sides between original homeowners' rights and new money development priorities. Real estate agents began warning potential buyers about ongoing neighborhood disputes affecting property values. Community barbecues and pool parties became impossible as neighbors avoided each other like opposing armies during a ceasefire. Vanessa's desperation peaked when she approached me directly with a bribery attempt. The confrontation happened at Kim's Corner Market, where she cornered me between the produce section and the craft beer cooler with an envelope thick enough to choke a horse. $75,000 cash, she offered, to resolve neighborhood tensions and restore community harmony. "Everyone has a price, Mr. Chen. What's yours?" I activated my phone's recording app before responding. Some things aren't for sale, especially not to people who try to destroy them first. Keep your dirty money, Vanessa. You're gonna need every penny for legal fees. Her political pressure campaign was equally desperate and equally ineffective. Phone calls to city council members, county supervisors, and anyone with regulatory authority fell on deaf ears when officials confirmed that infrastructure maintenance was legally required and municipally beneficial. Government bureaucrats don't respond well to pressure from private citizens trying to interfere with official public works projects. The clubhouse investor crisis began when her financial backers learned about potential demolition. Through public municipal filings, panicked phone calls and emergency meetings filled Vanessa's calendar as investors demanded explanations and guarantees she couldn't provide. Bank officials began questioning the viability of luxury amenity projects with uncertain structural futures, creating financial pressure that made her increasingly erratic. Meanwhile, I maintained strategic patience, allowing legal and bureaucratic processes to build unstoppable momentum. Desert mornings carried the scent of victory and fresh possibility across the still-standing development. As infrastructure permits moved through official channels, original residents rallied around our municipal stewardship message, while Vanessa exhausted herself fighting unwinnable battles against city ordinances and criminal charges. The trap was set, baited, and ready. All that remained was watching her walk into it. Vanessa's last-ditch legal challenge came through the most expensive municipal law firm money could buy, a Scottsdale outfit that charged more per hour than most people earned in a week. Her emergency court motion to stop the infrastructure work read like a desperate woman's fever dream, claiming municipal overreach, community harm, and economic devastation if I proceeded with the legally mandated utility replacement. The court hearing took place on a blazing Tuesday morning in the Maricopa County Courthouse that smelled like old wood and desert justice. Judge Robert Harrison, a no-nonsense jurist who'd been presiding over municipal disputes since before Vanessa discovered Phoenix, reviewed every piece of infrastructure documentation with the thoroughness of an engineering inspection. My municipal attorney had prepared a legal brief thick enough to stop bullets, complete with 70 years of precedent and city ordinances that made my authority absolutely clear. Your Honor, Vanessa's lawyer argued with the kind of desperation that comes with billable hours and impossible clients. This infrastructure action would constitute municipal vandalism of a premier residential amenity. The economic harm to my client would be catastrophic and irreversible. Judge Harrison's response was swift and brutal. Counselor, the petitioner's documentation clearly establishes his legal authority under municipal utility easement provisions. Furthermore, the Phoenix Water Resources Department has mandated this maintenance as overdue compliance. This court will not interfere with legally required public infrastructure stewardship based on speculative private economic concerns. The judicial rebuke was perfect. Injunction denied. Infrastructure work must proceed as scheduled, and Vanessa was responsible for $65,000 in legal fees she couldn't afford. Her face went through more color changes than a desert sunset as her lawyer packed up his briefcase with the defeated efficiency of someone billing for a lost cause. But defeat only made Vanessa more dangerous. Her character assassination campaign against me intensified, with anonymous social media accounts posting complaints about my dangerous obsession with deceased family members and emotionally unstable behavior pattern. She somehow obtained Emma's medical records through her ex-husband's pharmaceutical industry connections, spreading whispers about grief counseling and parental trauma that made my blood boil with righteous fury. The anonymous complaint strategy revealed just how far she'd fallen. Environmental Protection Agency reports about suspicious chemical storage near utility corridors. Arizona Department of Water Resources complaints about unauthorized infrastructure modifications. Even FBI tips about potential utility system terrorism flooded government offices with false allegations. Every agency that investigated confirmed my activities were legal and proper, but the harassment wasted taxpayer resources and painted Vanessa as an increasingly unhinged nuisance. My media strategy countered her smear campaign with municipal credibility and infrastructure responsibility. The local water resources reporter, Amanda Martinez from the Arizona Republic, had covered utility issues for 15 years and immediately recognized the public benefit of periodic infrastructure maintenance. Her interview with me focused on water quality improvement, system reliability enhancement, and the municipal necessity of proactive infrastructure management. People don't understand that underground utilities require active maintenance. I explained during our interview in my grandmother's townhouse, surrounded by engineering manuals and municipal studies. This infrastructure work will improve water pressure, reduce contamination risks, and allow upgrades that will benefit the entire community for decades. Meanwhile, Vanessa's clubhouse renovation had become a desperate race against time. 24-hour construction shifts, overtime costs, and corner cutting created building code violations and worker safety complaints that attracted unwanted official attention. Her remaining cash reserves disappeared into construction overruns while she tried to complete the project before my demolition deadline. The insurance discovery was the final nail in her financial coffin. Commercial property insurance policies specifically excluded coverage for municipal infrastructure actions and utility corridor maintenance, leaving her $1.8 million investment completely exposed. Loan covenant violations triggered by amenity facility loss would accelerate debt payments she couldn't possibly make. creating a domino effect that would collapse her entire financial empire within months. Community polarization reached its peak as Labor Day weekend approached. Neighborhood communication had completely broken down, with property owners choosing sides like civilians in a civil war. Even the Mourning Dove songs seemed muted, as if nature itself held its breath waiting for the inevitable confrontation. Vanessa's final desperation attempt involved recruiting outside advocacy groups to oppose the infrastructure work. But the irony was perfect. Actual water quality advocates supported periodic utility maintenance for system reliability and public health protection. Her last resort was considering physical obstruction to prevent demolition operations, but her visible mental deterioration made even her allies nervous about association. I completed all legal and technical requirements with municipal precision. Structural monitoring equipment was installed and calibrated. Safety protocols were filed with city authorities. Professional documentation specialists were hired to record the entire process. Local news stations received alerts about a significant municipal infrastructure story happening Labor Day weekend. The calm before the storm was almost peaceful. My grandmother's townhouse felt like a command center as I reviewed final preparations, surrounded by municipal documents that granted me absolute authority over Vanessa's fate. Every permit was approved. Every ordinance satisfied, every contingency planned for. Labor Day weekend would bring the largest community gathering to Desert Ridge Commons in years. Perfect timing for Vanessa's grand reopening to coincide with her empire's public destruction. The psychological preparation was complete. I'd steeled myself for irreversible action that would end this war permanently. The demolition authorization was ready to deploy. Labor Day weekend dawned with perfect Arizona weather, crystal blue skies, and comfortable temperatures that drew the largest crowd to Desert Ridge Commons in decades. Irony has impeccable timing. Vanessa's clubhouse grand reopening gala was scheduled for the exact same day I planned to demolish her dreams into rubble and dust. By 8 a.m., families were already gathering around the community pool and setting up for barbecues. Completely unaware they were about to witness municipal infrastructure history and financial carnage rolled into one spectacular morning. I arrived at the utility corridor access point at precisely 9 a.m. with my technical team and legal observers, carrying the authority of 70 years of easement rights and every municipal ordinance in Phoenix. Jessica Torres, the Phoenix Water Resources engineer, stood beside me with her official tablet and city-issued safety vest, while Deputy Mendoza provided law enforcement presence. 4 news crews had positioned themselves strategically after Amanda Martinez's tip about the significant municipal infrastructure story unfolding. Desert morning light painted shadows across the doomed clubhouse structure as I approached the demolition staging area. The concrete foundation hummed with contained energy beneath our feet, decades of structural integrity waiting for my authorization. Every safety check, every procedural requirement, every municipal protocol had been tested and certified, ready for the most satisfying public works project of my career. That's when Vanessa arrived like a general leading her final charge. Her white Range Rover screeched into the parking area, followed by 4 luxury SUVs carrying clubhouse investors, construction contractors, and 3 hired security personnel who looked uncomfortable about their assignment. Her designer heels clicked against asphalt as she marched toward us with the desperate energy of someone watching their empire crumble in real time before cameras and community witnesses. "You can't do this!" she screamed, her composed facade completely shattered in front of cameras, community members, and the financial backers who trusted her with millions. "You're destroying everything! This is my entire life's work!" The public meltdown was even more spectacular than I'd hoped. Vanessa's perfectly styled hair came undone as she gestured wildly, her white Armani suit wrinkled from sleepless nights dealing with construction disasters and loan covenant violations. The woman who'd terrorized our community for months was reduced to emotional breakdown before an audience of hundreds. Deputy Mendoza stepped forward with the calm authority that comes from dealing with desperate people. "Ma'am, Mr. Chen has full legal authorization for this infrastructure operation. Phoenix municipal ordinances require immediate compliance. You need to step back and let him proceed." Jessica Torres held up her official work order, the Phoenix City seal gleaming under morning sunlight like a badge of municipal justice. This utility corridor maintenance is mandated by Arizona Department of Water Resources regulations. Any interference constitutes obstruction of official public works activities. Vanessa's hired security team took one look at the law enforcement presence and official documentation before stepping aside. Even expensive muscle won't challenge county sheriffs and city engineers over a wealthy woman's temper tantrum. The news cameras captured every moment as I raised my hand to signal the demolition crew. 200 neighbors, investors, and curious onlookers watched as 70 years of easement rights and municipal infrastructure stewardship came together in a single authorized action. The crowd held its collective breath as hydraulic equipment groaned and structural supports began their controlled removal from Vanessa's marble palace. The first hour was magnificent. Foundation removal proceeded systematically, exposing previously inaccessible utility infrastructure and revealing decades of maintenance needs buried beneath Vanessa's luxury facade. Her clubhouse's marble fountains toppled awkwardly as expensive imported stone listed in the settling dust. The sound of concrete crumbling carried the satisfaction of justice finally served. Vanessa's investors watched their luxury amenity investment transform into worthless rubble before their eyes. Loan officers and financial advisors huddled in emergency consultation as property values evaporated faster than morning dew. The grand reopening gala became a disaster documentary, with catering trucks and promotional banners looking absurd against the backdrop of demolition equipment and structural destruction. By noon, the clubhouse foundation had been completely removed, fully exposing the aging water main for essential infrastructure replacement, serving the entire development. Water quality improvement was immediately measurable as the city crew began installing modern piping systems, and infrastructure reliability enhancement was visible to everyone watching. When Amanda Martinez asked for my statement on camera, I delivered the line I'd been practicing for weeks. This isn't about victory over any individual, it's about being a responsible steward of the municipal infrastructure my grandmother's generation helped build. Some people build legacies that last generations, others just build resentment that destroys communities. The technical explanation flowed naturally calm, professional description of water quality benefits, system reliability improvements, and infrastructure modernization that would serve the community for decades. Every word was legally bulletproof and municipally justified, making me look like a public works hero rather than someone settling personal scores. The community reaction was immediate and transformative. Original residents felt vindicated in their infrastructure concerns, while many newer homeowners realized they'd been manipulated by Vanessa's agenda. Municipal revelation came as exposed utility systems demonstrated genuine maintenance needs, and neighbors began talking across factional lines for the first time in months. Vanessa's complete collapse was total and public. Deputy Mendoza had to restrain her from attempting to physically attack the demolition equipment as her financial empire crumbled in real time before cameras and community witnesses. 9 months later, I'm sitting in my grandmother's restored garden, watching the most spectacular sunrise Phoenix has seen in decades. The soil sparkles with morning dew that would make a jeweler weep, teeming with heirloom vegetables that have increased garden productivity 60% since the community restoration. Phoenix Department of Water Resources now uses our project as the gold standard for community-initiated infrastructure advocacy, hosting quarterly workshops that bring municipal engineers from across the Southwest. Vanessa's complete downfall was swift and absolute. The clubhouse project collapsed into bankruptcy within weeks of the demolition, taking her entire financial empire down like a house of cards in a dust storm. Forced to sell her townhouse at 40 cents on the dollar to pay crushing debts, she fled back to Massachusetts with her tail between her legs and a criminal conviction for infrastructure sabotage on her record. The Phoenix real estate community treats her name like toxic waste. Nobody wants to be associated with the woman who tried to destroy a widower's family legacy. The community transformation has been nothing short of miraculous. Former enemies now work side by side on neighborhood improvement projects, unified by shared infrastructure goals and mutual respect for responsible stewardship. Property values have increased 25–30% thanks to improved utility reliability and enhanced community amenities. Our annual Community Infrastructure Day has become the highlight of the summer calendar, drawing families from neighboring developments to celebrate municipal responsibility and community cooperation. Democratic HOA elections swept out Vanessa's cronies and installed leadership focused on infrastructure protection rather than aesthetic control. The new board's first act was officially recognizing pre-existing structures, like my garden, as community heritage assets, deserving protection and celebration. Miguel Rodriguez now serves as security liaison. Dorothy Kim heads the Community Relations Committee, and Jessica Torres provides municipal consulting that keeps us ahead of all regulatory requirements. My personal healing has been as dramatic as the community's restoration. Successfully defending my family legacy while improving neighborhood infrastructure gave me purpose I hadn't felt since Emma's death. The Phoenix Citizens Infrastructure Advisory Board elected me as vice chairman, channeling my engineering expertise and municipal leadership into projects that benefit the entire metro area. Most importantly, I found companionship again. Dorothy's niece, Sarah, moved to Phoenix from Seattle after her tech company went remote, and we've discovered that shared values and mutual respect make excellent foundations for new relationships. The practical knowledge sharing has become a regional phenomenon. My guide for residents facing HOA overreach gets downloaded thousands of times monthly, while the municipal rights workshops I conduct with city agencies have empowered communities across Arizona to assert their infrastructure protection rights. Government regulations, properly understood and strategically applied, become powerful weapons against petty tyrants who mistake authority for wisdom. The Desert Ridge Commons Community Heritage Center, funded by legal settlement money from Vanessa's criminal case, now offers scholarships for civil engineering students and hosts research projects on sustainable urban infrastructure. Children's laughter echoes across restored garden beds as they discover radishes and carrots in soil that Emma once tended, reminding me daily why this fight was worth every sleepless night and legal battle. The annual Phoenix Urban Infrastructure Festival attracts visitors statewide, supporting local businesses while showcasing responsible development that respects municipal systems. Documentary filmmakers have created a feature about our utility corridor project that's being used in municipal planning courses nationwide, and the legal precedent we established protects easement holders' infrastructure rights against private interference. My grandniece planted her first tomato seeds in the garden last month, continuing a family tradition that Vanessa tried to destroy but only made stronger. 4 generations of gardeners, 4 generations of community, and now the promise of 4 more generations who watch sunrise paint this perfect desert sky gold and understand that some victories are worth more than money. They're worth everything. Every neighborhood has a Vanessa. Someone who mistakes control for leadership, money for merit, and intimidation for authority. But every community also has the tools to hold petty tyrants accountable if you know where to look and how to use them responsibly. Knowledge is power, and power belongs to people willing to use it for something bigger than themselves. Drop a comment telling me about your HOA nightmare. I read every single one, and your story might be next. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to see more stories about ordinary people who refused to be bullied and found extraordinary ways to fight back using nothing but determination, research, and respect for the law. As I finish writing this, morning doves are singing, and desert breeze carries the scent of heirloom tomatoes across soil that 4 generations of my family have called home. Some legacies are built with concrete and steel. Others are built with love, respect, and the courage to defend what matters.